The Elder Scrolls themselves can pierce the veil. They offer a view of the flux of time itself. The prophet who reads the scroll sees one version of what might be. Another prophet might have a different vision with equal veracity. The price for insight is the reader's sight. He is struck blind, and imprinted on his burned retinas, forever projected upon his mind's eye, are the luminescent geometries of the constellations, Adric symbols depicting all the things that were, are, and will be. Elder Scrolls are the ultimate dilemma to curious mortals. By unfurling the seraphic parchment, any man, mer, or beast could discover the secrets of the universe. There is no limit to what they can show. Even if the contents are subject to revision, every possibility is prophesied within, and in the right hands any mortal could become a legend, amending themselves into the scrolls. As your eyes adjust to the rapturous writings coming alive before you, their glow will begin to fade, the edges of your vision will close in, and those secrets you long to learn would be slowly engulfed by darkness. The price of information is your sight, and if you persist despite this, madness will follow. And there are even cases of individuals reading themselves to death. Of course, there are workarounds. What if you forced someone at blade point to relay the secrets to you? What could someone so callous do with the power of an Elder Scroll? No wonder a certain order of priests go to such lengths to keep these holy relics out of the hands of the public. What I've said so far may seem cryptic, but what more would you expect from artifacts believed to be fragments of creation itself? We've talked about a lot of lore on FudgeMuppet, yet there is a topic that features in almost every video title, without us ever explicitly talking about it: the Elder Scrolls. These few words encompass every single thing we talk about in the universe, and that's fitting, because their potential is boundless. We can cover everything we know about the physical scrolls themselves, but we'll never know everything. And if we did, we'd all likely ascend to godhood, disappearing in a great zero-sum, or fight to achieve Amaranth, rivaling the power of the omniscient dreamer, the Godhead. But we're not here to talk about divinity, nor ascending to it yourself. In the interest of keeping this video from being feature-length, we're going to stick strictly, or as strictly as possible, to the scrolls. What role have they played in the history of the mortal realm thus far, and what impact might they have in the future? Let's not dally. First things first, what is an Elder Scroll? Some would call the Elder Scrolls Adric Prophecies, though the pension of the ancestor Moth argue that this seemingly grandiose title is an understatement, and actually limits the power of the scrolls. They say these writings exceed even the gods, both Aedra and Daedra, and they say it on good authority. The actual origins of the Elder Scrolls is unknown. Paarthurnax claims that they exist outside of time, and are fragments of creation, so they certainly aren't subject to the laws and limitations of the mortal realm. No mortal sat down and wrote out the scrolls, and if the ancestor Moth priests are right in their statements, neither did any Aedra or Daedra. This revelation would be hard for a mortal to understand, as everything they know derives from the Aedra and Daedra. The Aedra are the ancestors of mortals, and arose from the interplay of Anu and Padamai, the forces of stasis and change. Therefore, it is likely that the scrolls came into being when Ner gave birth to Anu's child, the 12 worlds of creation. Anu and Padamai fought over Ner's affection, only she died from her wounds after the birth, and Padamai shattered the worlds of creation. Anu salvaged what he could, and combined them to form one world. This is one of many interpretations of the creation story, but if the scrolls predate the birth of the Aedra and Daedra, then they would have existed when only Anu and Padamai, and perhaps Anwiel and Siphis inhabited the universe. Siphis being the void, the embodiment of restraints, and Anwiel being the incarnation of self-reflection. This all happened before Lorkhan and Magnus and the other Aedra decided to create the mortal realm of Mundus, a realm riddled with limitations, meaning the scrolls do not play by the same rules. If Siphis is the sum of all limits, and Mundus is considered by many to be the house of Siphis, then the Elder Scrolls are free from his influence, and therefore their freedom gives them immense power. If the Elder Scrolls weren't confusing enough for you, then consider this. If they do not follow the rules of the mortal realm, none of Lorkhan's limits or Siphis' statutes, then how can the scrolls be quantified and archived? The answer is they can't. They do not exist in a countable form. They simultaneously do not exist yet have always existed. If we follow the creation story posited by the annotated Annuad, then the Aedra and Daedra were born of Anu and Padamai's intermingled blood. The Elder Scrolls already existed before the primordial forces fought over Ner the Mother. The mortal realm is another step removed, being created by the Aedra. The Elder Scrolls, if they were living things, which I guess would be just as plausible as them being pieces of paper, would scoff at the idea of mortal limitations. Our notions of quantity and existence mean nothing to them. How can we debate over the existence of the Elder Scrolls when they were born even before the ancestors of men and Mer, before the creators of mortality in their realm? You get the idea, they're meaningless to mortals, and by meaningless I mean, we cannot hope to attribute any meaning to something so beyond our comprehension. Our frame of reference, the lens through which humans perceive the world, doesn't account for such divine relics. How can you understand things that transcend your gods and your own notions of transcendence? Alright, I'm getting carried away into the orbis. Let's try to focus. The Elder Scrolls may be far more complex than literal scrolls, but they have been known to manifest in material form across Tamriel, and when they have, the consensus of those capable of reading them seems to be that the scrolls detail all events that have ever occurred, as well as all things that have yet to occur. In the former case, the information is clear and factual. In the latter, the scrolls do not give a play-by-play of the future. This would be impossible even for such powerful artifacts, as simply reading the scroll would likely impact the way these events unfold. Instead, the scrolls speak in prophecy and riddle, giving a sense of what's to come, without being explicit. Each reader is given a unique vision, never the same, but equally accurate. As with all prophecies, the scrolls predict the future, and their forecasts are never absolute, and are subject to deviation. Only after time has run its course and the event has occurred in the world do the details become fixed within the scroll. From then, readings of the event are identical to all readers. Despite a seemingly infinite unknowable number of Elder Scrolls existing, there are only a few examples of them cropping up in the Elder Scrolls, and fewer still have been translated to the common tongue. Parthenax claims that the Dragonborn prophecy comes from an Elder Scroll. The prophecy goes as follows: when misrule takes its place at the 8 corners of the world, when the brass tower walks and time is reshaped, when the thrice-blessed fail and the red tower trembles, when the Dragonborn ruler loses his throne and the white tower falls, when the snow tower lies sundered, kingless and bleeding, the World-Eater wakes and the wheel turns upon the last Dragonborn. This is one of the only times an Elder Scroll has ever been translated, though others claim this prophecy wasn't actually from a scroll, but was in fact inherited from ancient Akaviri wise men. A moth priest named Dexian Avicus claimed to hear a voice when reading an Elder Scroll, which foretold the tyranny of the sun prophecy. The voice said, "Among the night's children a dread lord will rise. In an age of strife, when dragons return to the realm of men, darkness will mingle with light and the night and day will be as one." The champion of Cyrodiil discovered an Elder Scroll in the heist of the Imperial Palace. The last Dragonborn found one in the Dwemer Tower of Mazark. Another was discovered in the possession of Serana of the Volkihar clan in Dim Hollow Crypt. Serana's mother Valerica held another in the Sol Cairn. 6 more have been confirmed, appearing during the interregnum period of the Second Era. In a recent video I spoke about the possibility of predicting the future through mysticism magic. It's rare, but it's not unprecedented. So what makes the Elder Scrolls so special when even old ladies in rags like Olava the Feeble can scry the future? Well, the predictions of your average mortal psychic are anything but reliable, and the power of the scrolls goes far beyond simple fortune telling, although the full extent of what they can do is uncertain. But the story of Alduin is a perfect example. Not only did an Elder Scroll provide mortals with the Dragonborn prophecy, but it was also used to end the Dragon War long ago in the Merethic era. Atop the throat of the world, 3 Nordic heroes battled Alduin, before using an Elder Scroll to banish the World-Eater forward in time. Upon his return in the 4th era, an Elder Scroll was used to learn a powerful dragon shout needed to best Alduin once and for all. We know the scrolls are bloody powerful, and we know they're equally dangerous. So what should mortals do when they discover one? Well, the Imperials tempered their desire for divine knowledge, and approached them prudently. By time-honoured tradition, the Empire gave the cult of the ancestor moth the exclusive privilege of reading from any scrolls they acquired. In the words of Crassius Viria, only our order is able to read the Elder Scrolls. All that is known of them comes from our augurs, whose readings are rewarded with flashes of insight into the scroll's prophecies. Each reading exacts a price, eventually rendering the augur blind. To the untrained eye, the contents of an Elder Scroll would look like a collection of oblique etchings and runes. They may see the constellations, but without insight into how to properly read the scroll, they are susceptible to neither visions nor harm. Once these drudges rise to the rank of adept in the cult, they will find themselves capable of interpreting the power of the scrolls. However, they are at great risk, as they have yet to master the discipline required to stave off the adverse effects of readings. Though unfocused, adepts can get a glimpse of infinity through the scrolls, and this can be mind-shattering. Overreaching one's faculties may result in being struck immediately, irrevocably, and completely blind. I called it a privilege that the Ancestor Moth cult were granted exclusive access to the contents of the scrolls. But as you can see, it is a double-edged sword. Exceptions exist, but for the most part, only the cult, with their meticulous rules and rituals, have discovered the discipline to guard one's mind while reading the scrolls. Their novitiates must undergo the most rigorous mental cultivation, and they often spend a decade or more at the monastery before being allowed to read their first Elder Scroll. Once an initiate has proven themselves to possess the necessary mental fortitude, they may acquire mediated understanding of the Elder Scrolls. Their blindness is less severe and not so permanent, and they will meditate and reflect upon their visions to achieve the optimal level of comprehension. The very best moth priests, or augurs as they are often called, have an illuminated understanding of the scrolls. They gradually lose their sight, but in exchange they attain greater and more detailed visions. The cult revere ancestor moths, hence the name. They believe the spirits of their ancestors live on through the moths that congregate in the ancestor glade. The silk produced by these moths are imbued with the ancestral spirit, called Fieran. But rather than the moths literally being the ancestors, the moths instead learn the soul song of the dying priests. By spinning their silk into fabric, the cult preserves guidance and wisdom, unimpeded by time-induced decay. So is that it? Do the moth priests have a monopoly on reading the scrolls? Well, there is another culture that worked tirelessly to decipher the scrolls without putting themselves at risk of blindness, madness, or death. The Dwemer. The Greybeards consider seeking and studying the Elder Scrolls to be a blasphemy, and no one does blasphemy quite like the dwarves. They designed elaborate ocularies of brass and crystal. By focusing the lenses, directing the light, and revealing the Elder Scroll stored within, one could inscribe transmundane knowledge upon a blank lexicon, but the quality of information gained this way is unclear. There was a mortal living during the 201st year of the Fourth Era who could decipher a rune lexicon, but he was subsequently killed, deceived by Hermaeus Mora. While on the topic of this prince, after discussing with a fellow daedrologist, I should address his relationship to the Elder Scrolls. Mora's sphere encompasses hidden knowledge, as well as the scrying of the tides of fate. Knowledge and seeing the future sounds a lot like the Elder Scrolls. Reading books from his library even seems to drive mortals to madness. There's also the imperial census of Daedra lords, which alludes to the fact that Mora was born of the thrown-away ideas used during the creation of mortality in the Mundus. Again, this sounds a lot like the Scrolls, but the key difference is, the Elder Scrolls are fragments of creation, when Anu and Padamai created all things and time began. This creation precedes the creation of the Aedra, the Daedra, and Mundus. So while Hermaeus Mora may not want to admit it, his power cannot be as potent as that of the Scrolls. But I digress. Mora betrayed Septimus Signus, but before his death, it was clear the once brilliant scholar had lost his mind in pursuing an understanding of the Scrolls. His ruminations on the nature of the Scrolls are fascinating, but it's an unsettling read, really putting his brilliant delirium on display. He compares the scrolls to a most excellent fabric, used to filter pollutants from the water. The wretched plankton caught in the fabric's fibers stank of prophecy, and that's how the scrolls worked. In summary, no matter how hard I try, I'm not going to be able to explain the Elder Scrolls without getting tangled in the seaweed of Septimus Signus's deranged metaphors. If this scholar can't adequately explain them, what chance do I have? The creation of the Orbis, the Void, the Scrolls, and the beginning of time will always be up for debate, but there is plenty we can speculate on. The way I see it, the Elder Scrolls are like fragments of Anu the Everything, trying to make sense of Padamai's chaos. Mundus is the house of Sithis. It is inherently chaotic, and the Elder Scrolls seem to have the divine purpose of trying to comprehend and catalogue all the confusion. Through prophecy, the scrolls predict the future, and as time runs its course, the scrolls document history with a surreal degree of finality. They try to establish constants in a realm of disorder. The scrolls are undoubtedly linked closely to the concept of time and its passage. This much is clear through the fact that they cannot predict dragon breaks, and it explains why dragons, according to Parthenax, are particularly susceptible to the power of scrolls. Dragons are tied to the dragon god of time after all. Anu and Padamai created time when they entered the void and sparked creation, and because the scrolls are fragments of creation, it makes sense that they have a vital connection to time. The Elder Scrolls give mortals an insight into the inner fabric of reality. Everything that happens in the realm of Mundus is documented by the scrolls, and when the prophecies contained in an Elder Scroll are enacted in Tamriel, the text of the parchment becomes fixed. All readers ingest the same divine message. It becomes a historical document, declaring the unequivocal truth of the past. Scholars cannot argue the bias of the writer, because the scrolls have no bias. Not even magic can affect the words written upon their ancient pages, and that is why the series is titled after these relics. Holding an Elder Scroll is like holding the script to reality in your hands. It knows all that was, is, and will be. The future is implied but not absolute, open to variation. When the great heroes are born, their paths are laid out before them, but they're by no means linear. The stories exist to be embellished. Heroes can make unique choices, take sides, achieve different outcomes. These are the kinds of divergences the Elder Scrolls account for. The inability of the Elder Scrolls to give an exact forecast of the future is a testament to what's fundamental in the games. It's about heroes making their own decisions, writing their own stories. The scrolls will archive their deeds, but only after the adventure ends. And there you have it, guys, the Elder Scrolls. If you enjoyed the video, show your support with a like. Thanks so much for watching. My name is Drew, this is FudgeMuppet, and I'll see you next time.